First, we are talking about a cold case podcast with a personal mission. Madison McGee is in town for CrimeCon. I love it. I'm obsessed. And she's a true crime podcaster after facing tragedy in her own life.
Yes, please welcome in Madison. We got to dive right in. Your passion, it really came from your personal story, so let's start there.
Yeah, so when I was a child, my dad was murdered, but I was told that he had a heart attack and passed away because I was 6 and it was hard for a child to digest. But as I got older, I found out the truth through sort of a weird set of circumstances, and it just really weighed heavily on me. I think I grew up in sort of this generation of people really liking true crime, docs, shows. And so to sort of feel thrust into a circumstance like that, it felt like I had no other option but to look into it myself. And now here we are.
And you, for 10 years, you didn't realize the true story, or you're still kind of uncovering the true story, but that is pretty remarkable. Now, I listened to this morning, I started, and it's done very, very well. The production, it's really a good, well-made podcast. And I want everybody else to kind of get a sense of it. So let's take a look at a trailer. We'll talk more after.
Yeah, I never thought of him as a suspect.
We have done nothing to cover this up.
Records were all accidentally destroyed in different ways.
A lot of sick stuff was going on.
Point blank shot him.
Whew. I mean, edge of our seat already. You were put into, as you say, dangerous situations. What was it like putting this together?
Yeah, it was just such a whirlwind, going from not really knowing exactly what happened to almost seeming like, oh, I could do this. Other people do this. I could do this too. I didn't understand exactly what I was getting myself into. I'm dealing with, a killer on the loose potentially. And so to start asking questions, people were not excited about that. Nobody really wanted to talk, and people put their guard up. And for me, it was scary in those moments, but it also pointed me in a direction of like areas to start poking more into. But with that comes obviously a lot of risk. So,
But I think there's such another layer to all this that a lot of the people are your family members. So that, I mean, as interesting as this must have been in one respect, it's also about your life. Like that must have been challenging too.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to compartmentalize that I'm making something that I want people to listen to help move the case forward, but I'm also sort of exploiting my life and talking about, things that are really personal to me and exposing trauma that I've had from growing up that even my closest friends didn't know about. And so it took a lot of mental stamina to sort of separate the two and keep pushing forward. And even still, I struggle with that.
I was going to say, do you find healing at all through this?
It definitely ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
I find it to be really therapeutic some days, and other days I just have to take a break and I can't really think about it, and I have to go outside and do a different activity and really separate myself from it, to kind of regroup and keep going. But I couldn't even write a how-to guide because every day is just so different, and what I deal with mentally, I can't even prepare for. It just sort of happens.
True.
Well, I think that's what makes this weekend so interesting here. We have CrimeCon in town in Nashville. It's huge, and it's the who's who in podcasts, murder mystery shows, detectives, forensic investigators. There's so many people. What are you looking forward to most, and what are you doing at the convention?
Yeah, I have a few sessions and panels I'm really excited about. I'm recording a live Q&A with Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline, which is going to be really exciting. But it's a really good time for people who are sort of involved in these stories to connect with other people who are going through similar things, right? They're dealing with the mental tenacity it takes to investigate cold cases and talk to families, but also to connect with listeners and sort of fans of my show and other people's shows and sort of hear what they're interested in. A lot of these people are internet sleuths, right? So they're the people on the Reddit threads that are gonna push my case forward. So I love connecting with people like that who actually genuinely take an interest in my story.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that because, there's the TikTokers out there, there's the Reddit people. Why do you think true crime has taken on this life of its own?
Oh, it's so hard to say. And I would love to study that when I have a moment because it is so fascinating. I think people don't like to think that the world is like such a bad place. And so to hear these stories, it really puts into perspective like that could have been me. And I think a lot of women sort of associate with true crime because they're like, oh, now I know what not to do, or I know red flags when I see them. And so I think people also just have a genuine curiosity and want to be in people's business. So they like really have a fondness for the genre. But it is hard to say because so many people, I mean, it's the #1 genre in podcasting and probably television. It's just wild how many people are so obsessed with true crime.
It's so true.
It really, really is, and I mean, I'm the same way, so I can't say anything bad about it because I'm glued to it.
Yeah.
What have you learned the most? I guess kind of a double question about podcasting and about your story.
Podcasting is really hard. I think it's so easy because it's audio only. You just hit play on your phone to assume that it's not as strenuous as like television and film. It's a completely different beast, and it's really difficult to put together something when you don't have visuals to compensate. And so audio becomes really important. And so that's something that I had to learn, a lot of the challenges that come with making something sound really good when you don't have anything else to sort of make up for it. So that was really difficult. And from a case perspective, I mean, gosh, I've learned so much, but I think the biggest takeaway is I've really gotten a chance to get to know my dad. And he passed away when I was 6. I really don't have, I have maybe 2.5 years of memories with him. And so this opportunity to get to know him in a really different way through his friends' stories and through other people who knew him, who have started reaching out with memories that they've had. It's been a really special opportunity to kind of reconnect with him in a different way.
Amazing. It's so good, though, everyone. It's so
much.
good. Thank
Wow. Well, when it comes to Ice Cold Case, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Dive deeper at icecoldcase.com to listen to more of Madison's story and, of course, her podcast.